Hey guys, thanks for joining me on the channel. Today we're talking about the 5 main concerns I have for the Steam Deck. Now, I don't want this to sway anyone. I'm actually super excited by the Steam Deck. I think it's going to be an amazing product. I'm super happy to get mine. I've reserved the mid-tier one and hopefully it'll get here eventually. But until then, we can just talk about it. Anyway, I also threw an extra 6 one at the very end that I also think might be a concern, and I'd love to get your guys' input on these things as well. So please listen all the way to the end and write a comment and let me know what you guys are thinking. So anyway, let's kick this off. Let's start with the first one. Number 1, the battery. This is something I'm probably most concerned about. Yeah, a lot of people talk about the battery life, which is a huge concern. 2 to 8 hours is a huge spread. And let's be honest, normally when you go into games, we want to crank things up. We want to go to like ultra on all the settings. It will be 60 frames per second. And we're probably going to be getting the 2-hour battery life. Most of the greater games, the better games, the AAA games are just going to drain the battery like there's no tomorrow. Now, if you're just planning on playing some of the really older games or emulators from the SNES, yeah, the battery life's probably going to do pretty good. But let's be honest, it's probably going to be on the lower end of the dream pool. Also, I'm worried about the charge time, because if the battery is draining in 2 hours, how long does it take to charge back up? Like if I'm flying from, here to like somewhere else like Texas or something, and I drain my battery completely, and I've got an hour layover, how much battery life am I going to get before I hop on my next plane? Or I don't know what kind of situation you're in, but the charge time could be a huge consideration. If you want to be playing a lot more and you can only play in spurts, plug it in, wait for 4 hours for a charge, and then drain in 2, that's going to be super, super annoying. Also, I'm worried about the longevity of the battery life. And how hard is this thing going to replace? Now, batteries, as we all know, they die after a certain amount of time. Sometimes they only get about 1,000 charges before that battery is toast. As you see with, like, say, our cell phones, your cell phone, like, after a few years, you can see the battery life has diminished considerably. And I don't know what's going to look like with this. Maybe after a year, you're only able to charge up to 80% of what you did at the very beginning. Maybe after 2 years, you're down to like 60 or 40%. I don't know what the battery life is going to look like, and we probably won't know until we actually get one and after a few years. So then the question is how hard is it going to be to replace the battery once we have it? Are we going to be able to buy batteries from Valve? Or we have to get the third-party ones off of Amazon or something? Where are the batteries of a weird shape? To replace it, do we just take off the back, take off a few screws, pop the back open, and slap in a new battery? Or is it going to be a lot more difficult? Now, I'm more a do-it-yourselfer. I'm totally okay with replacing my own battery, but a lot of people may not be comfortable with that at all. And that might be a concern. That might be something that we need to think about. Now with that, let's go to number 2, the Proton Compatibility. Now, this is kind of a hot button issue because Valve has said that at launch, 100% of the games are going to work. At least that's their goal. And honestly, if they do it, that is fantastic and phenomenal, and I'm all for it. I'm super excited about it. But I've been a Linux gamer for many years now, and I'm just telling you, with working with Wine, it's hit and miss. Like, yeah, sometimes you get games to work, but it's not going to be super easy. And I think a lot of people are expecting that they're going to be able to get their deck, and all the games are just going to work perfectly out of the box. And it's just not going to happen. I'm sorry to say. You're going to have some games that are going to work beautifully out of the box. A lot of games in Windows are going to, a lot of the Windows games in Linux, in Proton, are going to be perfect. They're going to play smooth and amazing, and possibly even better than they did in actually Windows. Some games, though, you're going to have varying degrees of success. Some of the older games that they're not really working on too much, because this is the way that works, is they look at which games are the most popular. Then they go and say, okay, of these like top 10, top 100 games, they try to make those games work in Proton or in Wine the best first, which makes total sense, right? But if you have some obscure game that came out, years ago, maybe it's not as popular, maybe you still love it, but it's not getting the love that some of the newer games are getting. So maybe it'll work great, but maybe when you go and actually start playing it, you're gonna have weird graphical things. Like I was recently, as I was trying it out, I was playing Knights of the Old Republic in Linux through Proton, and it worked. It worked pretty well. However, I, of course, I'm like, this is an older game. I'm gonna crank everything up. I turned on everything, and that was a mistake. So right from the get-go, I opened the game, and the characters I can see, the character models, but all the background, all the room and everything, all the walls are just gone. Like none of them rendered, none of them showed up. And so I had to go into the settings and turn something off, and then the wall showed up. I'm like, okay, this is looking good. So then later on, would I start doing like the speed bike races, or I start doing like force speed so I can like run really fast. It has this cool graphic effect where everything kind of like blurs a little bit because you're moving super fast. Yeah, the blur effect did not work in Proton. No, the whole screen just went completely black. I couldn't see anything. I have no idea how I beat the pod race thing, because the whole screen went black right at the end. And they said, you won. I'm like, great. I don't know what happened. So yeah, you're going to have varying degrees of success. You're going to have to go in and maybe make some changes. Maybe you need to tell it to use a different DLL. Maybe you need to download a Windows DLL and tell it to use that one. Maybe you need to go and tell it to use OpenGL instead of DirectX because DirectX isn't working right with it. Maybe you need to go and make other changes. So if you're like me and you're okay with going through and making a few modifications, you're going to be okay. But if you're not, if you're just a person who just wants everything to work perfectly, like playing like the PlayStation 5 or the Nintendo Switch or Xbox, and you want to be like console and everything just works beautifully out of the box, you might be a little bit disappointed. And I just want to curb that disappointment and just kind of let you know that, yeah, things aren't going to work perfectly always, and you might have to tweak a little bit, but with a few tweaks, I'm pretty sure almost everything to everything will work, but you may have to work with that. And the thing too is not even all Windows games work perfectly in Windows, as we've seen. Some Windows games were ported over really badly and they just look like garbage sometimes or have performance issues. And it's not because of your computer, it's because when they ported it over, they didn't do a very good job. So you just have to kind of be understanding, and hopefully things get really good. Honestly, I am so excited and I'm really happy with all the work and effort they put into Proton, and I hope it works really well. They're talking about whether they're going to have, they've talked a lot about how they're going to get all of the anti-cheat stuff to work perfectly in Proton, which I hope they do. That's going to open up a lot of games, but it's not working yet. And whether they get working by December, I don't know. I hope they do. I think that'd be fantastic, but we're just gonna have to wait and see on that. And even if they get all the ones working now, doesn't mean there's not gonna be a new anti-cheat coming out next year, the year after that or sometime, that's gonna break everything again, and they're gonna have to work it all over again. Hopefully that doesn't happen, but it is something that very well could. All right, let's get over to the third thing that I'm a little concerned about, and that would be the controls. Now, a lot of people are worried about the controls and how they're going to feel, where the buttons are too far to the side. I'm not too concerned by that. I'm more concerned with the touchpads. I have a Steam controller, and I love the Steam controller. I think it's a fantastic piece of hardware, but it is a little bit awkward to use. Certain games just don't work well with the touchpad. I don't like touchpads on laptops. I don't really care for it too much. It's usable, it's playable, but it's gonna take some time getting used to. So a lot of people are saying like, oh yeah, it's fantastic, you're gonna grab it, it's gonna work beautifully right out of the box, and maybe you're gonna have to give yourself a little bit of time getting used to it, especially with first-person shooters, things where you have to have a lot of accuracy and a lot of speed. It's gonna be awkward at first. Hopefully it will be done really well. They did add gyroscopes to help with that because they realized the touchpads are a little awkward. And so if you're touching the touchpad or the stick, you can use the gyroscopes to do a little bit of movement and aiming for fine tuning. Some people say it's amazing, but it's going to be something you have to get used to. And I know I'm going to have to get used to it because that's going to be super awkward for me. I don't know how you guys are going to feel about it, but hopefully it's not going to be too bad. And I may decide to try to only play games that have full controller support and stick away from the mouse and keyboard only games because they just may not work very well. All right, let's get on to the fourth one. Developers aren't going to design for the deck. Now, the thing about this is that, yeah, there are going to be some developers that are super excited by the deck. Valve has said they're making a specific API that games can query and say, hey, are you a Steam Deck? And it's like, hey, yeah, I'm a Steam Deck. Let's do this. And they can set all the settings and have it work beautifully. They can fine tune it and it'll be amazing. And I hope they do. But there's going to be, like all the older games, I don't think they're going to spend the time. The developers, they're worried about their next game. They're worried about making more money. And I don't think they're going to go back and spend the people and the time to make sure that's going to work beautifully on the Steam Deck. A lot of games, they don't do that for just Windows in general. You know, yeah, they're going to go and optimize it perfectly for the PlayStation 5. But on Windows, they're going to say, we're just going to give you all the options and let you do your thing. You guys go and figure out your own stuff. Figure out what resolution you want to be at. Whether you want to have shaders on or anti-aliasing or all these different things that take up CPU and GPU power. They're going to probably let you do your own thing because they gave you all the options to begin with. So a lot of people think, oh, they're going to go through and develop and everything's going to be great. I just don't see it happening. I see a lot of people that were hopeful that Valve is going to go and say, hey, if you develop for the Steam Deck, we're going to give you a discount, or we're just not going to take it as big of a cut when you sell games on Steam. And that sounds like a pretty good idea, but I really don't see Valve doing that. Valve is, their bread and butter, let's be honest, is selling games on Steam. They don't make that many video games, as much as they used to. We're still waiting for Half-Life 3, which may or may not ever show up. So I really don't see them going and spending the extra effort to go and undercut their bread and butter, what their main business model is, to try to push a Steam Deck. I think the Steam Deck is something fun they're doing, but I don't know if that's going to be something going forward. And that brings us to the fifth one. This may be the first and the last Steam Deck. Now, the reason why I'm saying this is because with the deck, they may not make a second or third one or fourth one. I hope they do. Honestly, if they were selling a new Steam Deck every 3 to 4 years, I would put my money down. Absolutely. I would buy it every single rendition with more power, more memory, more hard drive space, better battery life. I would love that. I think it's going to be awesome, but I don't know if they're going to do it. It seems to me like listening to Gabe and some other people from Valve is they're making this to see what happens, and they're going to see what happens. Maybe it's hugely popular, maybe it's not. I don't see them making a lot of money off of this. It sounds like they brought their price point down really, really low, and which is great for us, but at the same time, though, they're not probably going to make any money off of the sales. And I think that they're hoping that they may make some more sales off of Steam, but they're going to have to weigh of whether it's actually worth it or not. I hope they do, but I'm keeping my expectations low that that's going to happen. We're just going to have to wait and see, and I hope it is popular enough where they're like, yeah, we need to make a whole lot more of these. But we're just going to have to wait and see. When the reviews come out and people get them in their hands, we're going to actually see if it's popular enough and if we can get enough people that are willing to do it. Because a lot of PC gamers, they're like, yeah, I'm going to play my desktop PC with my mouse and keyboard where everything works amazing and my super power desktop. Otherwise, I'm going to play a console. I can play on my PlayStation 5 or my Switch or something like that. And this is kind of in the middle, and who knows whether it'll even be successful or not. So we need to keep our expectations a little tempered, I think. All right, now we're gonna get to the bonus one. I decided to throw a number 6 in there just for fun. And the dock mode may be garbage. Now, all right, it may not be garbage, but it may not be as good as we expect. I'm kind of concerned a little bit because, see, Nintendo Switch, we're all used to the Switch, where you have it, you plug it in, and boom, everything works beautifully, and that's awesome. The resolution's set, it turns up the power a little bit, everything runs beautifully and smoothly, and there's no problems whatsoever. However, with the deck, when it plugs into another external monitor or a TV, it's going to see it as dual screen. And that usually works pretty well, but sometimes it has issues because you need to make sure that the monitor or the TV is going to be the primary. So when you start a game, it goes to the TV and doesn't go down to the little screen that you have down on the floor. Hopefully they'll have that all ironed out and work perfectly, but who knows? I think it's probably going to be a better situation. Like in the video that they were showing, they have it as a desktop hooked up to a monitor, and they have a Steam Deck down, as kind of a secondary display, which would be pretty awesome because you can have it running and having like your Messenger or Slack or something running. And on the monitor, you can be playing your games, and having a dual monitor system sounds actually pretty cool. I think that sounds really great. And that may be the best way to play it if you're going to be doing it in the dock. However, to a TV, I don't know it's going to be as well, because if you're sitting back on your couch and you've got your Steam Deck all the way up there by the TV, you may not be able to see that little 7-inch screen. It may be really small, unless you have really good eyesight. And because of that, it may not be as good of an experience. I don't know how well it's going to transition. I don't know if it's going to look nice. Remember the Steam Deck, it is unlocked all the way up to like 8K. So if you got like a 4K TV or an 8K monitor or something, and you plug in your Steam Deck, and you say like, yeah, crank it up all the way, it's gonna look great and go really, really slow. Because remember, the Steam Deck, for one, it does not get faster when plugged into a power source. Like the Switch actually does crank it up a little bit, the Steam Deck does not. They actually said they will not have it go any faster. So if you have it all optimized perfectly for handheld, and then you plug it in to try to play it at 4K, it's going to run slower. You're going to get less frames per second, and maybe you have to go in there and readjust all your settings, and you probably don't want to have to readjust your settings as you switch back and forth. As you're going and playing on the bus, and you get home, you plug into the TV, and have to go into settings, like, okay, I'm going to change down the settings here, and I'm going to turn off anti-aliasing, I'm going to turn this off and turn this up, or you don't have to deal with all that. It may be more of a pain and less seamless as we see in Nintendo Switch. Anyway, those are my thoughts on the Steam Deck. I hope this doesn't dissuade you, but I hope this did kind of give you some things to think about. Please go and comment down below, if you think that I'm wrong in some of these things, where you think I'm right, whether this changed your mind or not. I'd really like to hear what your guys' thoughts are, and if there's things that you guys are more concerned about than the things I have on my list. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe. It really helps me out, and I really appreciate all the people that have done so for in my previous videos. You guys are fantastic. Thank you so much. I appreciate everything, and you guys have an amazing day. Take care. Bye.